They made me sit in the back, like I wasn't even his daughter. As my stepmother whispered something into my half-brother's ear, they both smirked, glancing over their shoulders at me like I was an uninvited stranger. The rest of the family barely nodded when I walked in. I wasn't even offered a seat in the front row, where I belonged. Instead, Aunt Carol coldly pointed toward the last bench. "That's more appropriate for you, Julia," she said. "You left this family years ago." Like, share, subscribe. If you've ever been underestimated or pushed aside, this story is for you. My hands were shaking. Not because I was grieving, my grieving was done years ago when Dad married that woman, Diane, and slowly turned his back on me. Today, I was here for closure, and maybe answers. What I didn't expect was how publicly they were about to humiliate me. Diane walked up to the podium like a queen taking her throne. She cried loud, fake tears, and made it sound like she had raised my dad's company with him. Not a single mention of me. Not one. Even though I'd spent my teenage years helping Dad when she was out shopping for designer bags and manipulating him like a chess piece. Then, right before the ceremony ended, the lawyer stood up. He cleared his throat and said, "Mr. William Carter's final will is to be read now, as per his last instructions." The room went quiet. Every head turned. My brother leaned back confidently, Diane clutched her pearls, and Aunt Carol whispered, "Here comes the money." The lawyer opened the folder. I could see the tension on his face. He wasn't smiling. "This will," he began slowly, "was updated exactly 3 weeks before Mr. Carter's death, and it contains some unexpected revisions." Diane's smile froze. My half-brother shifted uncomfortably, then the lawyer said one line that made the entire room spin. "To my daughter Julia, the one person who never asked me for anything but earned everything, I leave complete control of Carter Holdings, my personal estate, and all intellectual property associated with my business legacy." Gasps, eyes widened, someone dropped a glass, and Diane? She went completely pale. They stared at me like I'd just risen from the grave instead of Dad. Diane shot up from her seat, her voice shaking with rage. "This has to be a mistake. Julia hasn't been part of this family for years. She cut ties with William." The lawyer didn't flinch. "Mr. Carter kept detailed video recordings of every update to his will. If anyone disputes it, we'll play them in court." That shut everyone up. But their eyes were burning through me. My half-brother, Adam, clenched his jaw. He had grown up thinking the company was his. He even used to mock me at Christmas dinners. "You left with nothing, Julia. That's all you'll ever have." Now he couldn't even look at me. Diane stood frozen, fists trembling, still trying to process what had just happened. William must have been coerced. She manipulated him somehow. There's no way, but I was done staying quiet. I stood up slowly, calmly. "No, Diane. I didn't need to manipulate anyone. I earned Dad's trust while you were too busy spending his money and feeding him lies about me." The lawyer continued reading, now visibly enjoying the chaos unraveling. "To Diane Carter and Adam Carter, I leave $1 each. I trust they will put it to better use than they did with the hundreds of thousands already wasted." The silence after that line felt like thunder. Adam looked like he wanted to punch a wall. Diane stumbled back into her seat, but I wasn't done yet. I reached into my handbag, pulled out a sleek black folder, and handed it to the lawyer. "There's one more thing the family should know." The lawyer opened the folder and raised an eyebrow. This is a stock transfer file. Julia now owns 87% of Carter Holdings effective immediately, as per the board's signed approval last week." "That was it." Diane fainted. "Literally." Aunt Carol screamed. Adam stormed out of the room yelling that this wasn't over, and I just stood there, finally in the front row, where I was meant to be all along. But they still didn't know everything. The real twist, the one that would completely destroy what little pride they had left, was still coming. As the last few guests trickled out in stunned silence, I remained seated, silent, calm, but boiling with memories. The lawyer patted my shoulder before leaving. "He was proud of you, Julia. You should know that." I nodded, biting the inside of my cheek to keep the emotions down. Not now. I needed to stay focused. Because today wasn't just about the will, it was about everything they did to me over the last decade. Back when Dad remarried Diane, she made sure I was pushed to the sidelines. I was barely 19 when she manipulated him into cutting my college funding. She told everyone I dropped out because I was lazy. Truth? I worked 3 jobs just to survive. I remember serving drinks at a party once, and Diane walked in, wearing a fur coat I had picked out for her birthday the year before. She pretended not to know me, but I didn't come back just to gloat. I came back with a plan, you see. While they spent years spending Dad's money and playing rich, I built something in silence. A tech firm, Verity Core, focused on data encryption. It started from my garage, with nothing but an old laptop and $20 in savings. Now? My company had just signed a $20 million deal with a government contractor last week. I hadn't told a soul why, because I wanted them to see me before they saw the empire I'd built. The Carter name wasn't just mine by blood, it was now mine by power. But I wasn't done. Diane still lived in the Carter estate. She still thought she could hold parties, show off my father's legacy like she owned aita. That night, I paid a visit. I pulled up in a matte black Tesla, stepped out in a tailored suit they wouldn't even dream I could afford, and rang the estate's bell. A butler I'd hired just days ago opened the door. "Yes, Miss Carter," he said with a smile. "Shall I inform the residents of the change in ownership?" I nodded. "No. I'll do it myself." Diane came down the staircase in a silk robe, wine glass in hand. She looked at me with disbelief. "What are you doing here?" I held up the deed. "Actually, Diane, you're living in my house now." Her smile shattered, "And I think it's time you packed." She laughed nervously. "You can't be serious." But the butler wheeled out her suitcase from the hallway. "Already prepared, ma'am. As per Ms. Carter's request." And just like that, she was standing on the front lawn in her robe, holding a glass of Chardonnay, watching me close the door. But what she didn't know? That was just the beginning. Her screams echoed behind the gate, but I didn't look back. I walked through the marble foyer, soaking in every inch of the estate. Every corner held a memory, some beautiful, most painful. But now, it was mine. Not just the house. The legacy. The name. The power. For years, they tried to erase me from the family story. Now, I was the author. That night, I sat by the fireplace, opened my laptop, and started the next phase. Step 1, I changed the company name from Carter Holdings to JC Global. My initials. My brand. My rules. Step 2, I issued a press release exposing years of financial misuse under Diane and Adam's management. Lavish parties, offshore accounts, unapproved personal expenses. I didn't hold back. Everything was backed by evidence my private investigator had collected over the last 6 months. Step 3, I set up a public auction of all Diane's jewelry and luxury cars, everything she bought using company funds. Proceeds? Donated to a foundation in my mother's name. Within 24 hours, it was trending. Heiress Julia Carter exposes stepmother's years of fraud, reclaims family legacy. Tech mogul who started in garage now owns multi-million empire. And her father's company. But the real blow came when Adam's employer received an anonymous email from me, with attached documents proving he embezzled funds from 3 different Carter subsidiaries. His job? Terminated instantly. And since his accounts were frozen, he couldn't even pay his rent. A week later, he came knocking at the estate gate, disheveled, desperate, holding a resume in a crumpled folder. "I just need a chance," he said, avoiding my eyes. I looked at him for a long second. "You mean the same way you gave me a chance when you laughed at me for working at a coffee shop? Or the time you told Dad I wasn't Carter material?" His lips parted, but no words came. "I'll give you a job," I finally said. "Entry level. Mailroom. Starting pay, $18 an hour." He blinked. "You're joking." I smiled. "I'm not. But you'll have to pass a background check. And you should know, our company has zero tolerance for theft." He stood frozen, then turned and walked away. Pride swallowing his steps. As for Diane, she tried to sue me. Big mistake. The moment the court saw Dad's recorded video where he clearly said, "If anything happens to me, Julia gets everything. Diane gets nothing. She already took too much." The judge dismissed her claim without hesitation, and yet, it wasn't revenge that brought me peace. It was justice. For the teenage girl who cried herself to sleep when her dad missed graduation. For the young woman who worked double shifts while her family flaunted designer labels. For the forgotten daughter who everyone tried to erase. I was no longer the outsider. I was the force. I held a press conference weeks later. Standing behind the podium with cameras flashing, I looked straight ahead. "My name is Julia Carter. I was overlooked, underestimated, mocked, and erased from my own family's story. But today, I stand not as their shadow, but as their consequence. The audience erupted. Not with applause, but with respect, and just when the world thought the story was over. I made one last move. I bought the private school where Adam and I once studied. The same school where I was bullied for being the stepchild nobody wanted. I renamed it the Evelyn Grace Academy, after my late mother. And at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, I handed full scholarships to 20 young girls from underprivileged homes, because no girl like me should ever feel like she doesn't belong, and that was the real legacy I wanted to build. 2 months later, everything had changed, not just for me, but for everyone who ever tried to bury me. But this final move, this was personal. I got an invitation in the mail. A reunion. The Carter Family Foundation Annual Gala. I wasn't supposed to be invited. Diane had always run it, proudly listing herself as chairwoman of the Carter legacy. But this time, the invitation came from my office, because I had renamed the foundation. It was now the Julia Carter Foundation for Women in Tech. I walked into the gala in a navy blue gown, head held high. Cameras flashed. Every guest paused. Even the ones who once pretended not to know me, suddenly, they couldn't stop staring. Diane was there, somehow. Dressed in something less glamorous than usual. She walked up to me, lips tight. "Enjoying your little power trip?" I didn't flinch. I leaned in. "It's not a trip, Diane. It's the destination you never thought I'd reach." She scoffed and turned away. But the room had already shifted. Her reign was over. As I took the stage to speak, I paused and looked out over the sea of people. Investors, entrepreneurs, former teachers, distant relatives who had once mocked my garage business. 10 years ago, I stood on the outside of this family, told that I wasn't worthy of the Carter name. I was told to sit in the back, stay quiet, and accept whatever scraps were thrown my way. The room was silent, but I didn't stay quiet. I built. I struggled. I sacrificed. And while some were busy stealing the spotlight, I was creating a future, not just for me, but for every girl who's ever been told, "You don't belong." The applause was deafening. I smiled and added, "Tonight isn't about revenge. It's about rewriting the story, and giving the mic to the people who were never allowed to speak." Later that night, as the gala wrapped up, a young girl approached me, no older than 10, with nervous eyes and a small notebook in her hand. "Miss Julia? I want to build things, too. But my family says girls don't do that." I knelt down, took her hand, and smiled. "Then you're going to build twice as big, just to prove them wrong." She beamed as she walked away. Something in me finally settled. Not revenge. Not pride. Something deeper. Peace, because the truth was, this story had never really been about Diane, Adam, or even my father. It was about me, about rising quietly while the world laughed. About becoming unstoppable in the face of betrayal. About sitting in the back, and then standing at the front, and as the lights dimmed and the last guest left, I stood alone in the center of the ballroom, letting it all sink in. I had lost everything once, but now, I was everything they never believed I could be, and no one could take that away.